United States President Donald Trump made an urgent statement in which he directly said that after Venezuela, the United States plans to take over Cuba and Greenland. Trump has officially instructed the United States Joint Special Operations Command to develop a plan for a military invasion of Greenland. The European Union is raising the alarm about this. NATO's silence in response to President Trump's threats to seize Greenland has caused concern among European capitals, who fear that the alliance is not protecting Denmark's rights. At the same time, European countries, especially Britain, are preparing to send their troops to Greenland to cool down Trump's fervor. Meanwhile, Germany is offering an alternative: joint military forces to protect Greenland from encroachments by Russia and China. According to Trump prefers to reach an agreement peacefully, but if that fails, the United States is ready to go to war for these territories. In addition, Trump threatened that Cuba would no longer receive money and oil, so the authorities there should immediately make a deal with the United States. Trump stated that Cuban bandits protected Venezuelan politicians, but most of them died during the American operation to kidnap Nicolas Maduro. And in the case of Cuba, Trump also called on his military to prepare military scenarios for overthrowing the communist regime. My name is Alexei Pichi. Let's discuss this complicated topic together, but before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, give it a like, and leave any comment under this episode. This really helps a lot in promoting the content on YouTube, and I would be very grateful to you for that. Also, subscribe to my Telegram channel, Peachy News. The link is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. Washington is discussing a sharp increase in the American presence in the Arctic due to concerns over other world powers' growing influence. This is causing tension both within the United States and among NATO allies. United States President Donald Trump has instructed the United States Special Operations Command to develop a plan for a military invasion of Greenland. According to sources, people close to Trump believe it is necessary to act quickly in order to establish control over the island before Russia or China does. It is noted that Stephen Miller, the advisor on Homeland Security, is an active supporter of this idea. Trump's inner circle is urging him to act decisively before it's too late. This inspiration comes from the recent United States operation in Venezuela, during which former President Nicolas Maduro was captured. This operation is seen as an example that swift and decisive actions can yield results in other regions as well. At the same time, according to American journalists, the leadership of the American headquarters is skeptical about these plans. United States military officials point out that an invasion of Greenland would be illegal and would not receive congressional approval. Sources claim that the generals consider Trump's initiative insane and illegal and are trying to shift the president's attention to other military projects. Meanwhile, Trump himself has already publicly stated, what if he can't reach an agreement with the Europeans to transfer Greenland to the United States? The Americans are ready to seize the island by military force, and now the Europeans are already sounding the alarm. NATO has still not made a public statement confirming the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Denmark and Greenland, nor has it responded to Trump's statement. Regarding the huge Arctic island, which is part of Karabakh, this caused dissatisfaction among the European NATO countries who are trying to present a united front and ease transatlantic tensions. And now NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, who has such warm relations with Trump, has been unusually silent all this time. Against the backdrop of such a critical security issue, proposals from Paris and other capitals to increase NATO activity in Greenland were not accepted. Mark Rutte. Nevertheless, the Europeans have already figured out how to outsmart Donald Trump. Although, as it seems to me, and as I have said more than once, all of Trump's actions around Greenland, they were aimed at exactly what the Europeans are now proposing to do. For example, Germany proposes to create a joint NATO military mission with the official goal of monitoring and protecting the security interests of the alliance in the Arctic region. In reality, the main task of the new mission will be to protect Greenland. The model for the new mission could be the existing Baltic Sanctuary, which was established a year ago to protect NATO's security in the Baltic Sea. The mission, which may be called Arctic Shield, will focus on ensuring the security of Greenland. And now it is known that the head of the German Foreign Ministry, Johann Wadefull, is expected to visit Washington in the coming days, where he will meet with United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio and plans to discuss Greenland with him. And I will quote him where there are different points of view. We want to work on these disagreements through dialogue in order to properly fulfill our shared responsibility for peace and security. The legitimate interests of all NATO allies, as well as the interests of the people of the region, must be at the center of our considerations. Of course, this also applies to Greenland and its people. At the same time, the United Kingdom began negotiations with its European allies regarding the possible deployment of military forces in Greenland to strengthen security in the Arctic and to address the concerns of President Donald Trump. The military leadership is preparing plans for a potential NATO mission on the island. In recent days, British officials have already held consultations with representatives from Germany, France, and other European countries to begin preparatory work. In particular, the plans may include deploying British soldiers, warships, and aircraft to protect Greenland from potential threats from Russia and China. And thus, Trump will have no reason to seize the island. According to the Allies' plan, this would allow the American president to claim a victory for United States taxpayers by showing that Europe is taking on a larger share of the security costs for the Atlantic region. That's what I was talking about, and the goal is to threaten in such a way that the Europeans take all of this upon themselves. But in the meantime, Trump threatened that Cuba would no longer receive money and oil, so most likely that's the next target, in his message on Truth Social. He stated that Cuban bandits protected the Venezuelan dictators, but most of them died during the American operation to kidnap Nicolas Maduro. According to Trump, Cuba lived for many years off oil and money from Venezuela, and in return, Havana provided security services to the Venezuelan dictators. But now Venezuela does not need protection from Cuba's bandits and extortionists, since the country will continue to be guarded by the United States. To quote literally, there will be no more oil or money going to Cuba. Zero. I strongly advise the regime in Cuba to make a deal before it's too late. And let me remind you that Trump openly stated that the next item on his administration's agenda in the fight against drug trafficking in Latin America would be Cuba. And according to him, helping the Cubans is a logical step after the events in Caracas. Meanwhile, Cuban leader Miguel Díaz-Canel Bermudez stated that the Cuban army is ready to fight for Venezuela, calling the American operation fascism. But, in fact, nothing followed after the statement. And this is where things get interesting. I have long said in my broadcast that the main ideological mastermind behind the operation against Nicolas Maduro's regime in Venezuela was United States Secretary Marco Rubio. He insisted that a single strike could decapitate both regimes in Havana and Caracas. Let me remind you that Marco Rubio himself is actually the child of Cubans. And if you look at American media today, you'll see that Marco Rubio is already being promised the presidency of the United States of America in 2028, since it's his strategy. And now a lot of experts are saying that if Secretary of State Marco Rubio also brings down the regime in Cuba, then he is 100, well, let's not say 100, but 99%. He will be the next president of the United States. That would be a tremendous success. And even Donald Trump is already hinting that he will support this idea, and for this reason, Marco Rubio will definitely insist on overthrowing yet another regime while the Europeans will be working on Greenland's security. That's quite a complicated scheme. I'll leave it at that, friends. If you found this episode interesting and useful, you can support the work of this YouTube channel financially with any donation using the links and details in the description of this video or by using the QR code on your screens. I would be grateful for any support from you. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone. To be continued.